Now, to talk more about this, we're now joined by legal expert Mpumelelo Zikalala virtually. Very good evening to you, Mr. Zikalala. It's always a pleasure having you join us on this evening. Thanks indeed for taking time to join us. Welcome.
Good evening to you, and also good evening to your viewers.
First of all, sir, can you briefly explain the legal and the constitutional significance of the public comment process in the appointment of electoral commissioners? I mean, why is public participation critical and crucial in this stage?
Remember that everything which is done that is going to impact on members of the public must be free and transparent in every single way.
Yeah.
So if you are going to have individuals who are going to act as electoral commissioners, call them the shareholders of the IEC, then us as members of the public must be given an opportunity to comment on those names, to say, I know Zikalala is not good on this one, or is going to be biased. I've seen his views when it's come to certain things. I've seen a manner in which it's been working in. I do not trust that it's going to be able to do the work. And the most important one is that the most important intelligence and the most credible intelligence that you can get is from members of the public. So you must open up the process which allows them to comment on that, other than the legislative compliance process that needs to be there.
Now, with 11 candidates shortlisted, including the current IEC chairperson, Mosoto Moepia, and judges like Dia Pillay and Mjabliseni Madondo, what qualities and expertise should ideally guide the final selection of these crucial roles? I mean, what unique value do these judicial figures bring compared to non-judicial appointees in ensuring free, fair and credible elections?
Well, you need a whole host of individuals which are going to make part of the commissioners. You need the legal fraternity to come in, because you need to make sure that there's legal compliance in everything that you do, or legislative compliance. But you also need someone who's going to look at it from a social perspective, political perspective. A person will be able to engage in all those processes and the needs that are there. But the most important one which would emerge now, which I think the commissioners or the selection team would look at, is the introduction of technology. Do you have someone who's young, who's much more clued up when it comes to technology and the manner in which we can develop the service of voting so that it's in line with what the international community is doing? So it's not a process of finding someone who's a legal scholar that will be able to render those services of saying what is wrong and what is right legislatively. It's a whole host of things that need to come in. But most importantly, other than their legal qualifications, is what else do you bring to the table? Do you want the cherry on top and the number of benefits that you can get if we're able to employ you or you are appointed as a commissioner?
I mean, you've just raised a very important quality in terms of the selection criteria. You mentioned that someone has to be young and tech savvy in order to handle some of the innovations associated with electioneering. So the law also requires that at least one commissioner must be a judge of the High Court. Now, Mr. Zikalala, what's the rationale behind this particular provision? I mean, how does having a judge on the commission strengthen its work and credibility?
It's the credibility to ensuring that you're going to have someone who's going to be clued up as to what the legislation is looking for. Remember that elections are quite a sore point and quite a tricky one. So if you make a mistake and if you're going to engage in a process where you need to consult with legal advisors all the time, you're not going to get anywhere. There are some decisions that have to be made quickly, made within a quicker turnaround time. So if you then don't have someone who's well clued up as to how things are supposed to be, then you have a problem. Not only a person who's a legal practitioner, but a person who has been an adjudicator before. A person will be able to say, I can be able to sit and know that what are my counterparts going to look at when this matter goes to court. Let's take that decision so that we're able to protect the integrity of the elections, which is another point which is important when looking or selecting your commissioners.
Since the public has already been invited to participate in the selection process, can the people oppose a name? And if so, what's the process of doing so? I mean, what really happens to the candidate when their name is being opposed?
That's the opportunity which is going to end tomorrow. Because if you have a problem with a certain candidate, then you state your views. And then when that candidate has been called for interviews, probably which will be within a public platform, those questions will be posed to them to say, there's an allegation that has been made by you in this particular sense. Can we hear your response? If it is something that is damning too much, then the commission or the selection team will then say, we're not going to take this person because there is information that has been leveled against them and they can't be able to defend it. So that's the importance of the public participation process, which I must state, by the way, other than credible news channels like yourselves have made it clear. you find that most individuals, if you go to the streets tomorrow, they're not going to even know that there's a process which was open. And then you ask yourself and say, the legislature that are in parliament, why don't they go back to their constituencies and say, this is the opportunity that has been opened? As members of the public that have sent me to parliament, do you have any questions that you would like us to pose to the candidates that are there, to make sure that the transparency of the process is transparent to the T and it's not merely just a tick box exercise?
And in as much as the public does not have much time left in terms of, weighing in their thoughts on the potential members of the commissioners, what would your advice be to members of the public then who wish to make submissions on the suitability of the candidates? I mean, what kind of objections or even endorsement hold weight in this particular legal process?
Certain things and certain views that have been stated by those that are applying, maybe that are contrary to what the Constitution is stating or requires.
Yeah.
So if there's any political bias that has been expressed by any of the parties or candidates that are there, if there are any views which are going to lead or may be creating an impression that the person is not going to be an independent commissioner that is going to look at those elections and make sure that they are free and fair, those are the type of objections that can be leveled through. There's still time though. There's still condonation that you can apply for. It can be rejected because the time would have come and gone.
Okay.
But at least you would have been able to state your point across and state, these are the concerns that we have. When you make the decision, please consider this point so that you make an accurate and select a commissioner that is going to serve and represent us as South Africans.
Mr. Zikalala, it's always great chatting to you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Indeed, it's an absolute pleasure. That was legal expert Mpumelelo Zikalala speaking to us about, members of the public having just a few hours, to make their comments on the suitability of the candidates that have been nominated to fill vacancies of the electoral commissioners.